Welcome to the studio. I'm Keme Nzerem, and I'm delighted to be hosting this panel on the cloud and reimagining the value of the cloud through this time of market uncertainty. We have got a fantastic panel of senior technologists in the room to take us through all the thorny issues. Freddie Quek from Times Higher, Nicola Wadham, most recently the Chief Information Officer at the FSO, Richard Newsom, ex-Sainsbury's Cancer Research and Rolls-Royce and many other, and Vivek Daga, who's the Managing Director of NTT Data. So I just want to start, team, by laying out the context, if you like. Cloud is perhaps an overused term these days, but I think it would be really useful to understand where your organizations are on that journey to cloud. Freddie, give us the break.
Sure. So, we now take cloud for granted, but it's not been that long ago. If I look at the last decade, right, and I was in publishing for a long time, trying to get them onto cloud was really difficult, all right? And that's for a big company, yeah? And now if you look where we are today, I find that, because in my last 8 years, I've been through a number of different industries, from, startups to scale-ups to corporates, and they all have different paths, right? But the key thing is that now we're taking cloud for granted. In my current organization, I'm able to at least, as part of the tech strategy, say cloud first. You would think that it's such an obvious thing to say, but you got to say it, and even then, it doesn't mean that people get it. So I think as a concept, yes, we are now saying that, hey, to all intents and purposes, you got to be cloud first. But in practice, I think there's still some way to go.
I've also worked exclusively in industries where technology has been enabling the business and therefore has been on the journey from a on-premise solution through to the cloud. Now, the Financial Ombudsman Service, I'm delighted to say, has been on that journey. I've been with them for 4 years. They started about 3 years prior to that, so they've been on the journey for about 7 years. We closed the data centers in April this year. We are fully cloud. That organization has no on-premise kit other than local stuff in for connectivity.
Richard, you've done this across numerous organizations.
Maybe mostly two. Yeah.
Tell us where they got to and what their journey was like.
Yeah, so my last two organisations were most recently Cancer Research UK and before that Sainsbury's. I think both organisations that people will know something about. I think in both cases the cloud journey was started maybe 10, 12 years ago. So again, probably not dissimilar to most other organisations that are represented around the table here. But I think now very much in a similar position to that described by Freddie and Nicola, where principles like cloud first are second nature, taken for granted, whether cloud means SaaS, whether cloud means solutions that are bringing differentiation and are engineered internally. I think again both Sainsbury's and Cancer Research now relatively mature around some of those changes to ways of working, but equally I see organisations that are still trying to come to terms with, for example, different ways of governing their financial investments.
But Nicola, I'm curious because you said your experience at the Ombudsman, actually the transition had begun before you started there. It was relatively smooth. It sounds like internally you didn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting.
I think that the reason why the Ombudsman Service was able to do it because it's a relatively simple technical estate. So once the major transaction system was put onto SaaS, and that wasn't a difficult choice because the prior platform was out of support. So that was an easy step. In fact, we adopted Workday for our back office system, and then the rest as a Microsoft, largely a Microsoft shop. It's the exploitation and the realization of value of the platform that they now have, and the stewardship and management of that, which is to do with skills, organisation gaps.
Freddie, is it working in the way that you want it to?
I think it depends on your perspective, right? You know, if you look at most of your stakeholders, they don't really care.
As long as it works.
As long as it works. So this is why, but then if you get this thing near your stakeholders, you can imagine the first thing that comes into their mind is always about cost optimization. And what you have to do is to educate everybody about the fact that this is, number one, a journey, it's not a one-off thing, right? And number two, it's not more than just cost, because I can relate back to the early days of outsourcing. So think about it, this is outsourcing, it's a type of outsourcing. And I always talk about it as a sourcing strategy. It's part of your sourcing strategy. This is just one thing that you do. It's not the whole thing. It's not everything, right? And part of that, therefore, because of that understanding of the sourcing strategy, it's not just about cost, right? It's about the other stuff that you mentioned about flexibility, agility. So all those things you got to take into account.
And Richard, your experience again in the context that it's got to be financially viable. Is it a difficult discussion? And you know, does it make an organisation work more efficiently?
As far as winning the argument to move from more traditional technologies into the cloud in all of its various different guises, I mean, I may be looking back through rose-tinted specs a little bit, but I don't recall that being a particularly complex discussion. Your counterparts as leaders of various functions of the organisation trust that as the leader of the technology team, that either you personally or your team have got the skills and got the experience and you know, got the wisdom to take the organisation down the right route.
Do we have any questions? Thank you. Sir in the pink shirt there. And just let us know what your name is and what you do, so we've got some context, please.
Ako a combination of CDO and CTO, but that's for later. The question is regarding the cost. One of the key benefits many years ago when we were all trying to encourage businesses to adopt the cloud was you're going to shift your CapEx into OpEx. But now with the increasing level of private equity ownership, OpEx is the enemy. And my question is, are you coming across that kind of scenario? And have you seen any good solutions for getting around that?
I think and actually interestingly, you know, we're doing some work with portfolio acquisitions of private equity firms as well. For them, they are looking to leapfrog, right? So they need to look at that as a portfolio investment that needs to deliver a return. And they're really pushing the boundaries on a SaaS first model, because they're interested in a zero footprint IT approach if they can. So if anything, actually they're pushing the envelope on what we generally are calling cloud, but for them it's more SaaS first rather than cloud first even. And through that model, they're looking to shrink the overall sort of IT footprint itself. So I think that's part of, you know, the answer for what PE firm portfolio firms are doing.
Top learnings on the transition.
Here is a question that I'm still trying to answer, and maybe if you have an answer, please let me know. Right? Do you go single cloud or multi-cloud? Single cloud gives you simplicity and cost efficiencies. Multi-cloud gives you assurance, resilience when there's an issue. So in my experience, the last few years, with one of the single cloud at the moment, there's been a few outages. How do I answer to my stakeholders?
The cloud journey, it's not about the tech, it's about the people, it's about organisational capabilities. So you must invest in the skills and understanding to manage your cloud and to create the appropriate roadmaps to do the exploitation.
One of my reflections is in both of my two previous organisations, we didn't embark on a cloud transformation program or initiative. We embarked on the initiative to build new capabilities, achieve critical business outcomes, and with that came an evolution to cloud. The transformation has to be led by business outcomes rather than led by solely by technologists for technology reasons, in my view.
Vivek, final word, sir.
So on any journey, right, as people start to flag, it's very important to talk about what's going well. And use that to build conviction and belief. Otherwise, it starts to flag and there are more questions than answers. We don't celebrate that enough, right? Let's talk about the successes. Second is always set expectations. Otherwise, on a journey, when you think we'll cover 20 miles and we cover 2, then people think about where we are. Setting expectations then I think aligns everyone. So alignment would be the second big thing.
You have been watching Reimagining cloud in an era of economic uncertainty, and please a round of applause for our brilliant and insightful panel.